Once we arrived in the park around 9 a.m., we drove into the Chisos Basin where we found our amazing campsite and began setting up camp. We then took a 5-mile hike down to the window and back. On day 2, we drove to Mueller's and then we saw Santa Elena Canyon and drove the Old Maverick Road. On day 3, we hiked to Emory Peak and then the south rim of the Chisos Basin. We then took a 3-mile desert hike from Hot Springs to the Rio Grande Village, where we relaxed and played some catch. We then took River Road and the Glen Springs unimproved roads. After we set up camp, we tracked down the window trailhead and began our 2.5-mile trek down to the window. The last time the three of us had been to Big Bend was in the spring of 1995. We had never been to the park this time of year and had not seen the amount of greenery, plant life, flowers, or especially the butterflies. There's butterflies pretty much everywhere we went, even in the desert. The hike down to the window involves 800 feet of descent, and once you get down to the bottom, you have to navigate some rocks and water obstacles. In the drier season, there isn't running water, and it's less difficult. The views from the window are just spectacular, and it's an amazing hike. One of my favorite parts of the park is the openness and freedom that comes along with that. Once we got to the Mule Ears Overlook, there was this little hill right off the little parking area. I decided to hike up it to get a better view of Mule Ears. Just climbed up this little hill, and got the Mule Ears behind me. You can see them right there. Whew, it's fun. It was totally worth the climb. We then pushed on to Santa Elena Canyon. We were a little disappointed when we arrived. The plan was to hike into the canyon, but due to recent rains, the creek that you have to cross was flowing quite high and it was impassable. We still enjoy the views, took quite a bit of time taking pictures of the canyon. Santa Elena Canyon is one of the most recognizable features of Big Bend National Park. We then hopped in the truck and went down the Old Maverick Road. The Old Maverick Road is a dirt road and it's suggested that you only take a 4x4 high clearance vehicle down it. This drive was a lot of fun and it wasn't actually that rough, and we got to see a lot of cool parts of the park. This is Luna's Jackal. This is residence of Gilberto Luna, who was a Mexican pioneer farmer in the early part of the 20th century. It's now on the National Register of Historic Places. The freedom in the park is amazing. On our drive, we saw a hill overlooking a small canyon. The canyon was Javelina's Wash. We climbed the hill and took pictures and marveled at the views. We even got to meet a park ranger who saw us on the road and stopped to check on us and make sure we were okay. He was great and gave us some cool stories about the park. Day 3. This is the day that we came for. Day 3 saw us climb Emory Peak and hike the south rim of Big Bend. We spent the morning hiking to Emory Peak. Once we got on the Emory Peak trail, things got a little rough. A lot of uphill and very rocky. The views from Emory Peak were worth it. I wish I would have got more video, but I was so busy taking pictures and honestly just enjoying the views that we had. After we hiked to and climbed Emory Peak, we then made our way to the South Rim. We went to the South Rim via the Northeast Rim Trail, so essentially we took the longest way possible. But it's totally worth it because we got to see the South Rim from different angles and we got to see it for a good while as we hiked around the rim. We've heard stories, both online and personal stories from friends that have hiked the South Rim. We've always heard how amazing and beautiful it is, but me and my brother and my dad, we've all been to the Grand Canyon and seen what we have thought was the most beautiful thing ever. But the thing about the Grand Canyon is you just drive right up to the rim, hop out, and look over. The South Rim of Big Bend, the only way to see it is by a 12-mile hike at minimum. So the views, not only are they spectacular, but you have to work pretty hard to see them. So it makes it even more worth it. On our way down from the rim back to the basin, we had a little bit of an adventure. Wes, my brother, saw a bear in a tree. The bear fell out of the tree 15 yards in front of him. So then he started yelling for me. I came around the corner and the bear hopped back in the tree. We then had to hop off trail and navigate around him. Luckily, we both felt great the whole hike until about 2.5 hours till we were done. That's when the pain started and we were exhausted. All in all, we hiked 20 miles in 11 hours. Day 4, we went to Boquillas Canyon. Boquillas Canyon is one of my favorite parts of the whole park, mainly because of my experience there as a kid when I was 9 years old back in 1995. When we went there as a kid, I loved it so much because there's this big sand slide right off the river. The winds would blow sand from the banks of the river up onto the canyon walls. Well, over the years, people, unfortunately, like me as a kid, had slid down and caused erosion to the sand slide, so it's not quite as spectacular as it was when I was a kid.
Is that it? That's a sand slide.
Back 20 plus years ago, the sand was all the way up to that cave.
Yeah, it's eroded.
The views we got at Boquillas Canyon were honestly just spectacular, though. It was a fantastic morning. The weather was beautiful, the sun was out, the skies were blue. It was a great morning. Once we got to Hot Springs, we decided that we would do a 3-mile desert hike called the Hot Springs Canyon Trail. It took us from Hot Springs to the Rio Grande Village right through the middle of the desert. There was no shade and it was quite hot. And honestly, it was an amazing experience. Once we arrived at the Rio Grande Village, our dad had drove the truck over from Hot Springs so that we didn't have to hike all the way back to Hot Springs. So he was waiting for us at the trailhead. We then grabbed our gloves and baseball out of the truck and played catch. This is something I'd been kind of excited about because I remember this area from when we were kids and how awesome and beautiful it was. After we relaxed at the Rio Grande Village, we then hopped in the truck and went on the River Road. River Road is a 54-mile dirt road through Big Bend. We were on it about, I think, 12 miles or so. One cool part about the drive is my dad had this guidebook that he had all the way back from the 80s that described the road, and honestly, nothing had really changed. It gave mile markers and just told us facts about the park.
After less than a decade, it was abandoned. Today, a pile of adobe rubble is all that marks the site of the original studio mission.
We then took the Glen Springs road, which was much rougher and even more open. It was just a really cool and relaxing way to end our time at Big Bend. The next morning, we packed up our camp and headed home.